Hi everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Okay, so if you joined us in our last video, just a quick recap, we created a single file plugin project using the Eclipse scripting wizard, and then we wrote a basic program to calculate some conformity indexes or indices, the R100 or basic CI, and then an R50, and we calculated those for the plan's target volume that was selected. We also added some checks and that sort of thing. So if you want to go back and watch that just to see some of the things that we did, or to follow along live, then you can do that. And then so what I'd like to do next is just create a GitHub account, and then just so that we can start to save our projects and that sort of thing. And okay, so first I did actually add a couple of things, and I just wanted to go over them. So I'll just read through the code that we wrote the last time. So a couple of things that we did was we added some checks, and if you followed along, then you'll notice I added some comments. I went back through and added some comments that that I forgot to add. So we checked to make sure that that there's a patient open, and then we checked to make sure that there's a plan pulled in, and also that the dose is calculated. And in order to have a dose calculated, you have to have a structure set. And so one of the things that I noticed is that we didn't have a check to make sure that the structure set was not null. So we had already checked to make sure that the plan setup was null, or was not null. So we know that this would be okay, but once we try to use the structure set, if the structure set returns null, so in other words, if a plan doesn't have a structure set, like if it's a clinical electron plan or something like that, something that's just been added from plan parameters, and not something that has a structure set attached, then we know that this would cause it to crash if we don't check for it, right? So we could add a check that says if structure set is null, return a message to or send a message to the user saying that sorry, this selected plan does not have a structure set, and then I can get rid of this, and then return. So by saying return, it would end the script, which is what we did up here. However, once I thought more about it, like I said, since we already know that there's dose that's been calculated, in order to calculate dose, you have to have a body, an external structure, or a structure with the DICOM type external. And so just by knowing that, there has to be a structure set. So I don't think that this test is necessary. If you wanted to add it in, you could. Okay, so anyway, so then after we've made some checks, we got the patient ID just to display later. We got the plan setup, the plan ID, the target volume ID, and then we use the target volume ID to pull the then we got the structure set, and then we use the target volume ID to get the target. Okay. We also grabbed the body. So we put the body in the, sometimes people call it the external. Essentially all it is a structure that has the DICOM type external. And this is required in order to calculate dose in Eclipse, at least best of my understanding. And so if you're reading through the code, you'll notice that we did something the long way, but then we did it the short way. And so let me just go ahead and move this. We'll just move this down below. Let's see. So in order to grab the target the long way, we declared an empty target, or an empty structure labeled target, and then we looped through the structure set, and then we checked to see if each structure's ID matched the target ID, right? And then if it did match, then we assigned the target to the structure, or we assigned that structure as the target variable. And so the short way, though, to do that is to use this. So you access the structures, and then you use first or default, and then you use an anonymous parameter. And this is for anyone who's not familiar with programming, or like, you know, some of these built-in queries that you can use with link or LINQ. So you declare an anonymous variable, and then you add your test here, and then by saying first or default, it will return the you can see it returns a structure, but it will return by saying or default. If there's no match, then it will just return null. If there's not a match and you only have first, like, so another option is just to do this, but that you only want to do this if you know for a fact that there will be a match. If there's not a match, then you'll have some issues. Okay, so then we check down here. We'll check to make sure that the target's not null. Okay, we know that if there's dose, then there has to be an external structure, or a structure with the DICOM type external. So that's our body structure. And then we check to make sure that the target's not null. And so the reason that the target can be null is that you can have a plan that has calculated dose, but you don't necessarily have to have selected a target volume. And that would be something that's just in the plan properties. So if you don't have a target volume selected in your plan properties, then this would return there would not be a match, and then this would be null. So then we need to check to make sure it's null, and if it is null, then we need to ask the user to select a target and then in the script politely. Otherwise it would just crash. Okay. Because here we're trying to access that. Well, you can't access the volume property of a null object. Okay. And if you watched the video where we talked about value types, we started talking about null. Well, null is not a value type. Null is a value of type object. So I was looking at it, and like, so null, if we just hover over it, well, no, it doesn't. But yeah, so anyway, so I looked it up, and I believe it's the type that null is an object. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so we saved the volume of the target in a variable, and then we calculated from the plan. We used the method getVolume@dose. We gave it the body. We told it what dose value we want to get the volume, which dose value we want to get the volume at. And then, so that's at the 50%. And then we also got the volume of 100% from the body. So it's the volume of the body that's receiving 100% of the prescription dose. And this is the volume of the body that's receiving 50% of the prescription dose. And so those are used down here to calculate the R100, which is just a basic CI or conformity index, and then an R50. Okay, and these are used commonly, if you're not familiar. The plan that we were using these for to calculate was for an SBRT plan, and those plans have a really high dose and a small number of fractions or treatments. And so the idea is that we want a really high dose, and then we want really sharp fall off. Okay, so these are some of the measurements that we calculate to evaluate plans. So the R100 is simply the volume of the 100% divided by the target volume, and then the R50 is just the volume of the 50% volume divided by the target volume. And then all we did was just display it to the user. Okay, we're not doing anything fancy with it. We're just providing a message to the user that provides us some of the basic information, and we just kind of spaced it out a little bit. And if you're familiar with string interpolation, we talked about in the last video, I think it was the last video, we talked about how when you're using a single file plugin, which is what this script is, you can't, at least in version 15, to my knowledge, you can't use string interpolation. So you use string.format, okay? And then you use placeholders. So there you go, okay? And then we wrapped all of that in, after the first couple of tests, after these two tests, we wrapped all of that in a try-catch statement. So that way, if there was, any other sort of issue that we had that we didn't foresee, then we would just politely show a message saying that something went wrong, provide the message and the exceptions message and stack trace, and then we would throw the exception so that we could potentially provide a little more detail, so that these may not provide or whatever. So, all right, so that's just a recap of the script and some of the things that we added. So we potentially, we added the potential for structure set check, which I don't think is necessary here since we already know that there's dose. And then we just added some comments here that we forgot to add. Well, I should say that I forgot to add. Okay, so now what I'd like to do is let's try to create a GitHub account. And okay, so I'm going to go to github.com. I want to click sign, no, not sign in. I want to click sign up. And so it's going to ask us some information. And so let's do the coding dosi at gmail.com. Okay. And we'll continue. We'll create a password. And let's actually move this over here. Well, we'll just go ahead and create it. Okay. And then for our username, let's just say HelloESAPI. Okay, so we'll just make that our username. And would we like to receive, I'm going to say no. I'm not really concerned with that. It wants us to solve a puzzle, so spiral galaxy. At least I think that's what it said. I wasn't really paying attention. I just assumed. Okay, so we'll create the account. Save that. Okay, so now I need to verify it. And it looks like I've signed out of my email, so I'm going to pause real quick, sign back in and get that code. Okay, so all I did was log into my email, grab the code, and then, so now it's asking me some more questions. How many team members will be working? Just me. And I believe this is just trying to help figure out what tools I need. I just want the free, I just want to use this for free. So let me just skip personalization. All right, so it looks like it's creating a dashboard. Okay, so I don't really care about any of this. I'm going to dismiss this for now. And the first thing I want to do is, just because I hate this, so I'm just going to edit this really quickly. So we can put, I can put map, and then let's see, well, I'll just upload a photo, and a real original there. Okay. All right. Oh, and it looks like it didn't save. So let's just do that. And let's update. All right. And let's see. Let's look at the profile and see what it looks like. It's a map from HelloESAPI. All right. Perfect. All right. So, okay. So we don't have any repositories right now. So let's go over to, let's minimize this. Let's go to, let's pull this up. And I actually want to open up, I don't want to create the repository here. I want to create it in, so let me open up. Well, I guess I could have done it. I could have done it from there, I think, because I think it'll ask me what directory I want to create it in. But let's create a Git repository. So we have an account, and let's see, do we have? We have this set up. Oh, this is not. This is like this was something that I tried to test. So let's go to account settings and let's remove this. And let's add a GitHub account. Okay. So let's see what was, actually it wasn't that, it was this. Okay. So I think I ran into some issues earlier. And right. So something happened earlier. So you're being, okay, so this worked. Great. This is actually my second attempt at doing this because my first attempt was just, it went awfully. So for whatever reason, when the first time I tried this failed, this part failed. And I wasn't paying attention, so I just closed the window and didn't notice. And then from that point on, I could not push anything. So it would let me create the repository, but it would not let me push. So it was very frustrating. So anyway, so now let's try this. Hopefully this will work. So I want to create this in, let's see, I think I can actually, oh yeah. Okay, so that's actually okay. Let's go here. Let's go to this dev. And I'm just going to create it in this GitHub directory. So select this, and I'm going to make it public. And I don't want it to be called new repo. What do I want it to be called? Let's just call this ESAPI. Okay, so this will be an ESAPI projects directory. Eventually we may split things up into their own individual repositories, but I think to start, I just want to create one like large repository that will host like a bunch of projects. So, and I don't want to call it I don't want to call it intro to ESAPI because I want to get pretty complex pretty fast. So yeah, let's just call it ESAPI. So not that this really matters. This is probably just a waste of your time and mine, but hopefully you're watching this on like 1.5 speed or 2x speed or whatever. Okay, so that is what we were looking for. So that 0 outgoing, that means it was successful. Okay, before I kept getting a 403 error and it was so frustrating. Actually, so if that ever happens to you, if you're, for whatever reason, if you feel like it shouldn't be crashing and you're getting like a 403 error or something, the solution that I found was from a Medium article. And basically you have to go into your Windows credential manager. So what I did is I went into the credential manager and I removed all instances of GitHub credentials that had been saved or whatever. I think something got mixed up or whatever. I'm not really sure, but I removed those and then I just didn't test it. I just went ahead and deleted the original like GitHub account, and that way I could create a new one. So yeah, so here we are. So now we've made our first repository. It was that easy, thankfully. And let me refresh this. Okay, so now we got our picture up. And we have an ESAPI repository. So this is great. I'm so happy this worked. Okay. We could create a README. So now that this is already created, you can see there's git attributes and git ignore. This git ignore, if you're not familiar, it has a bunch of things in here that it tells the git repository to ignore when it pushes. So like it won't push anything that ends in these file names or these like file extensions. It will ignore everything in these folders, the debug public, etc. bin. You don't want anything that's really like these files aren't really that important. If you have like config files, you could add like star.config because you don't want those to go. Stuff like that. And honestly, they're probably already added. Like config probably is, I would think. Because I think there is like an app.config file at some point. We could search or whatever. But if you're new to gitignore and let's say you want to do like another project, like maybe a like Python project, if you Google it, let's see. Whoop, I can't spell. Good grief. Let's see. No. There's a GitHub thing that has tons of gitignore files that you can use. So basically you can just type in like gitignore Python. Okay. Or like gitignore Django or whatever. And then you just find the example, and then you can copy it and paste it into your own .gitignore file. Okay, so that's just an example of what gitignore is. Okay, so and then the git attributes. This is like some of your settings and stuff like that, I believe. So yeah. All right, so Visual Studio offers this great tool right here. So we have our solution folder. And then there's this git changes. If you don't see this, if you go over to view, there's git changes and git repository. So there's these different like git, and then there's a git tab as well. So it has like a bunch of the things, a bunch of the settings and different actions. So like fetch, pull, push, sync, that sort of thing. You can add a branch. So like if you're new to Git, using like version control. So that's what this is all about, is using version control. So the idea is that instead of having to manually save files on your computer, and then every time you want to make changes, like you don't want to mess up the working copy, so you make a copy of the original and then you name it like version 2 or whatever, version 1.2 or 1 or whatever. And then you make your changes, and then if it doesn't work the way you want it, you just delete it, right? And then you go back to your original. Or let's say it does work and you like it better, so now you keep that version and then you use that. That's now your working version. And then the next time you want to make a change to it or an update or whatever, then you copy that one. Anyway, that's just a manual process. We don't want to do that. So we want to use Git for our version control. Well, that's what I like to use. And so Visual Studio makes it nice to use. So now if we close this, which we could have just opened the project, but I'm just going to go, I'm going to go and open the project that we had. Oh, and actually what I want to do is, okay, so what I want to do is if we go into this folder right here, we have this repository, but not, you can tell there's no folders or anything. So I want to copy, I'm kind of surprised. I would have thought there would have been an ESAPI folder, but maybe not. All right, so I want to, let's see, I want to, let's take this, and we'll just we'll create a directory for projects, okay? And then in that directory, let's paste this project, okay? So this is a conformity check single file plugin. And now if we open the project, let's test something. So let's open it. So this is the project that we were just looking at. And let's see. Okay, so now if we look at our Git changes, we see that there have been 3 changes. And so the changes that have been made are this file and these files were added, okay? So what we want to do is we want to commit these to our, we want to commit them and then push them to our repository, okay? So I'm just going to add a message here. And so we'll just say added, we'll say added simple conformity checks project. Okay, and then you'll just click commit all, or you could add a note for like, you know, specific ones or whatever, I think. And then you just click push. Okay, and what push will do is it will tell you, so we successfully pushed the origin master. Okay, and let's see, I wonder, I feel like, okay, yeah, so here's our code. So if you click this code tab, then you can see our projects here. Okay, so let's see, so we've got projects, conformity checks. Okay, and, whoop. Oh, that just tells us what happened. Okay, so let's go back. We'll click on this, and then you can see that our actual like single file plugin is just right here. And then you can see all the code. So it's great. Okay. All right. So that is that. And I think, let's see, let's go to settings really quick. I want to say, let's look at branches. I think we can edit this name. Okay. So let's just change this to main. All right. So we'll change the main branch to main, or the, you know, the overall branch. And then if we wanted to create a new branch, all we would do is, let's just refresh. Okay, and we can see that there's not, let's see, let's close, let's see, pull operator, output window. So it's telling us that new branch main, origin main, exception of type, get remote ref not found. Okay, let's close this. Hope we didn't just break it. And let's open this again. If this doesn't work, then we'll change it back, I guess. That's weird. I would have thought it would be called main. Let's see, let's just try main. Nope, it won't let us. Well, of course. I guess, okay, so it's telling us sometime before your next pull, get config, pull rebase, false, merge the default strategy. Okay, so let's just, I think, oh, this is the output. So let's look at, so get, I think there's probably, let's try manage branches. Nope. Okay, let's close that. Get, I want to pull up the, there we go, command prompt. Okay, whoop, where'd it go? Okay, so let's try, what does it say? Get config, whoop, pull dot rebase false. Doesn't appear for anything to have happened. Let's see, what is, forget what the command is to list all of the directories. Let's see. Oh, do you really just type dir? That's weird. I don't remember that. Anyway, let's try that. There we go. Okay, so we're in the right folder. Okay, so let's try. You can replace git config with git config -- global to set a default preference on all your repositories. Okay, git config pull dot rebase true. Let's try refreshing, see if any of those did anything. Okay, let's try the global thing. So git config -- I really cannot spell right now. Okay, so global. Okay. Okay, let's check some of these. So let's do git status. Okay, on branch master, nothing to commit. Okay, let's let's see if we can change this back to master. Okay, so it says it will not update your members' local environments. Okay, so let's leave this here, and then instead let's do it using that. Okay, so git branch -m. So let's quickly check if this has worked. Okay, so git branch -m master main. Okay, so it's just changing it. Okay, so git branch, oops, let me move this so we can see. Branch -m master main. Okay, so now let's do git status. And, ooh, whoops, I can't spell, obviously. Git status. Alright, so now we're on branch main. Okay, so it says work is up to date with origin master. Nothing to commit. Renaming the master remote master. Oh, okay, so now we want to okay. So git push -u origin main. Let's do that. Git push u origin main. So git push -u origin main. All right, and now we want to remove. Let's actually, yeah, let's just git push origin -- delete master. Git push origin -- delete master. And if this doesn't work, then we'll remote. Oh, refusing to delete the current branch. I guess I should have read ahead. Okay, if you try again now, deleting master with the remote repository should be successful. GitHub, like yada yada, expects you to find a default branch. Oh, okay. Additionally, your old master might be set as protected. You'll need to resolve this before you can go on. Okay. Well, you know, let's just, since we have to go there anyway, and we know it let us delete it, so let's refresh. And so now we can see that we have, so let's change this. Main is now named master, got it. Let's change to main. Well, actually let's change to master. And let's click this default thing. Guess maybe we need to go to settings and branches, and that's our default. Maybe we want to, no, we don't want to rename it. Switch to another. Let's switch to main. Update. I understand. Okay, so now let's try that again. Oops. Okay. So I hit the up key to get that again, and now we're deleted. Alright, so now if we refresh and we go to code and we look at our branches, now there's only a main branch. Okay, so obviously you don't have to do that, but if you just, I like naming it main instead of master. It's just easier to say and that sort of thing. So, okay, so, all right, so we are done. So hopefully, you know, hopefully you didn't have that issue that I did. But yeah, so we now have a GitHub account, and we've created a repository, and we've pushed to it. So now let's see, if we look at our repository, we can just see our project there. So now as our project grows, then we'll see that. We'll see everything. And actually, once we add another project, we'll actually see just the projects folder. But since there's only one directory, it just automatically sends you to this just to save time. But once we add another one, then when we see this, we'll actually just see projects. Okay, and we can see our note here. But yeah. All right, so I think with that, we're coming up on 40 minutes, so I think that's plenty of time for something as silly as this. So I hope it was helpful. I'm sure it was probably frustrating watching me struggle. So hopefully you did not have that issue. And it looks like now we've been able to synchronize, so that's good. Okay, so I think the next thing that we'll do is, so if you watch some of the other videos where I talk about like some of the best practices and some of the like design principles and that sort of thing, there's a lot going on in this code, and we want to simplify these things. Like there's no reason for us to and we want to do it in a way where we can reuse it, right? So there's no reason for us to rewrite this logic every single time. So we can put this into a method, and we can just clean this up to where it's much easier to read, so that when we read through this execute method, it's just a lot easier and quicker to read through. And so I think that will be our next task at hand. And then eventually, we'll begin to build out a little more robust system where maybe we have multiple targets, and we have like unique structures that we use as opposed to the body in order to calculate the 50% and the 100%. Maybe we need to create like a custom VOI or volume of interest, or like a region of interest for each specific target, right? Like maybe for like a frameless case where you have a bunch of lesions, or maybe you just have a multiple ISO, or maybe not even multi-ISO. But that's actually another point. If you have multi-ISOs and you're in a plan sum, maybe you want to know what it is in the plan sum. So we would need to do some different things in order to get the DBH from the plan sum. So that's actually a planning item. So it's not a plan setup. So we don't actually have access to that. So there's some other checks and things that we would need to do if it's actually a plan sum. So if you're trying to run the script in a plan sum, then you probably are getting this error. Hopefully you're getting this error, right? That means that we actually, you know what? You're not. You will get, because the plan setup would be null. So you might actually be getting this. So if you're getting this, we should maybe even, change this to, please make sure that you don't have a plan sum and pull in and that your plan has dose or something like that. But really what we need to do is check to make sure that we're not in a plan sum. And then I don't think they've updated the API in version 15. We'll have to play around with it, but we would need to write, and I think this is the way it currently is in version 15 at least, is that we need to write a check to make sure that there's not multiple plan sums open. Because in order to get the plan sum, we have to look for the plan sums in scope, and then we have to pull the first one. So it's kind of frustrating. We might be able to figure out a better way. But anyway, that's what we're gonna work on. We're gonna work on building this out. We're gonna make it easier to read through, and talk about probably a couple of other design principles along the way. So yeah, we'll probably I think probably what we'll do as well is create a UI so that the user has the ability to select which structure they want to use. So it'll be we'll start with a very simple UI project, and we'll probably we might even write it like a sloppy way so that you can see how you can write it if you just need to do something quick and dirty, and then how you would write it if you're trying to write it a cleaner way and have it look more professional or that sort of thing. All right, so with that, I think I've rambled long enough, at least for 5 minutes. Or longer, I've been rambling. So with that, I hope that you have a great night. I hope it was helpful, and let me know if there's anything that you need help with or that sort of thing, and we will see you next time. Have a good night.